very first line, operating revenues,
No,
the lease of the hospital building and equipment.
That is a number that they have put in the budget every year.
Sure.
Because they divided that $15 million starting in '96.
Right.
And no, we don't get that $500,000. What we get in is about $18,000.
Right. And I think
But
that.
This is the way the budget is.
Right. No, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying that. I'm just saying going forward, if we're going to establish a tax rate at this point, that money's not really revenue. It's already money that we have in a fund balance, and I think that we need to look at that more as a fund balance. We can draw from that fund balance, but I think that we have to be able to justify the budget, to justify the tax rate on revenue coming in.
exactly.
So I think that we would have to set the tax rate without consideration of that as revenue.
Right, it's
Yeah.
just.
Okay, so we change the budget and we delete lease of the hospital building.
Right. Just
So that it doesn't show that we made $500,000.
Yes, yeah, I think that that's a more prudent way to approach it.
So what needs to be there, just like we do on our county budget, is their first line is the property tax. So there needs to be an estimate of the property tax based on a proposed tax rate, that's the revenue. And then behind that are the expenses, which the expenses are listed here. And then you come up with your, why do you need a tax rate of X? Is because it would support this budget, which this budget does not fit with. If you read the statute in 1042, it says, the board shall prepare a budget that includes proposed expenditures and disbursements, estimated receipts and collections from the next fiscal year, and the amount of taxes required to be imposed to meet the proposed budget. We don't have the amount of taxes required to meet our proposed budget, so I think and this, just so everyone who's here or listening understands, we're a little bit behind on this because as we thought until 2 weeks ago, that this tax imposition was not going to occur until 2025. And so that's why I think we've got a little bit before the horse, or we don't have our ducks exactly in a row, is because this budget is very similar to the budgets, as President Massey said, very similar to the budgets that's been proposed every year when the hospital district did not have a tax revenue. But now we're saying that we will have tax revenue if the battery is proposed. So this budget is supposed to be reflective of what it would look like if the battery is approved, and it currently doesn't.
Okay, do you wanna work with our budget gentlemen, to get this changed? Or do we wanna just change the wording right now?
Well,
I think.
I'm kinda doing some math here real quick, so. Yeah, I think that, we need to anticipate a revenue in the ballpark of 1.8 million a year. I think that's where the tax rate should reflect.
Okay.
To that 1.8, and that includes the ambulance services, and then basically I added the 636,953, which is the indigent care costs. I added that to the operating expenses bottom line here, and came up with 1.841 million. We do have still have that reserve. We do still have the
fund balance.
fund balance.
Yeah.
That we can draw from. So I think that if we targeted 1.8 million and then backfilled with fund balance, that way we're not
Be
overshooting.
more realistic of what is going.
Yes, and then I think from there, we'll dial things in over the next few years.
Okay.
So you're saying that the lease of hospital building and equipment needs struck from the budget, and there's where we add Hood County Hospital District tax. Is that,
Yes,
okay, spell that out there, and you put a figure of 1.8 million is what we've talked about before. So that's just to make sure
An approximate number, yeah.
okay.
yeah. And, of course, that's going to lead into another discussion with caps, exemptions, and all of that stuff, which we do not have in place now, except for the one cap that,
That he sent us, which was the over 65.
Over 65.
The over 65, yeah.
and what is that over 65?
It was
Figure on it.
15,000 exemption.
Okay.
And it was
all right.
already in play when you
Right.
stopped taxing, so it's still in play if you initiate the tax again.
Yeah.
So 15K over 65. So,
The question is, do you add the other exemptions, homestead and the other stuff?
We can't do that this year. We have to do that for the next
Right.
tax year.
so to get to the 1.8, we're taxing at the 17 billion.
No,
No,
less,
less the caps. I
Like
think he
14.
estimated the 153 million was the over 65. So that left was 14 billion.
It brings us down to 14.
Okay.
So when you said what, 1.8?
Yeah.
So Kevin, the gross operating revenues, instead of the 100,035, should be 1.181631. Have you gone through that yet?
So you just added 695, 10, 173, and 7716.
And took out the 636 for indigent? Right?
I am a little unclear why that's under operating revenues. I would think that would be under operating expenses. The indigent care.
That was my first question, my first hospital district meeting, if you remember that.
So I think that if that were under operating expenses, then yes, adding that 636,953 to the operating expenses gives us the 1.84.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
all right.
And then, strike the lease of the hospital building and equipment.
So are we gonna, Kevin, gonna go ahead and get this cleaned up? Is that where we're headed? So,
I mean, this open meeting right now is to discuss, for anybody in this room to discuss this. And then when we close that, we'll go to the next one that says, discuss and take appropriate action to approve a proposed 2025 budget.
Carrie,
In thinking, if we wanna put this on the next agenda, which is Friday,
yeah, which one?
we can fix this and put it on Friday's agenda, have an amended agenda.
is that enough time?
It's just adding and subtracting numbers, so it's,
Right, and I guess, I don't know, I had a meeting with Jeff Law the other day, and, he was saying as long as your budget goes down, you don't have to repost and then have another hearing, but whenever it goes up, from what's been posted, you do have to have another
Okay,
hearing. Does,
I don't know, I'm not an attorney.
right, no,
You know, I'm a nurse,
Yeah.
so.
No, that was one of the questions that I'd specifically, or that we had specifically talked about. So I think we need to repost this, have another hearing on it. We got to get this thing right.
Amen, yeah.
We've got to do that Friday.
Do we?
I think we have to do that Friday.
Oh, we're up against the deadline on.
For the
Yes.
ballot measure, yes.
Oh, okay,
Ballot
all right,
measure.
yeah.
So we have to add this to the agenda on Friday so that we can vote on the changes that you're gonna.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Did you say?
Okay, so we're still in the public meeting?
Mr.
Yes.
Sanford?
Okay,
Did you say 1818584? What was your number?
1818584.
Okay.
okay. Mr. Reeves?
So, Nanette asked, Commissioner Simpson asked for, my budget, which I will not release publicly for obvious reasons. So I've got some notes here that I would like to bring up first, so that you can understand where I'm coming from. In your packet, there's some graphs, and I'll go over those if you just bear with me. So Texas EMS is a 501c3 nonprofit EMS organization. We started in 2001, become approved in 2002. Prior to that, we were owned and operated by the county or the hospital district, prior to CHS taking that over. So we've been here now for about 22 and a half years, other than in the gates of Pecan, which Brandel and Pecan EMS handle. We have a mutual aid agreement between the two of us. We help each other when we need, and we are available. Our business model, we collect revenues out of the collections that we get from patient transports. And in your packet, there is a picture that shows an orange that shows collections. That's collections from insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, etc., private pay, e-bike pay. And then you have in there miscellaneous income, and so that would be grants or we do a lot of standbys and rodeo schools. Those would be other miscellaneous income. And then you have our membership program, which you see a revenue from it. Right now, we're about $130,000 a year on that. That is going to increase as we go forward, yes, sir.
Isn't the membership part of the $20 per household in Pecan or not?
It is. No, it's not.
That's his.
But that's his. $20 goes strictly to Pecan. If you're on a mud in Pecan and you pay on the water bill, then that is mine. I think it's
The water bill is where.
So it's $2 right now on a mud that comes to me if you have that. And some have a mud, some don't. From my understanding.
Okay.
And then City of Granbury is the other one. We total about not even 8,000 people in the whole county. And then we have independent memberships to the school, county, Stockton Bend, the RV ranch, those other things. Again, that's one of a lot. Now next year will go up, it will probably increase closer to 180,000, but it's not a substantial amount of income to offset other income, is what I'm getting. It is income, but it's not gigantic. And then any donations we may get. During COVID, the county graced us with $300,000 of ARPA funds. I think it was the first tranche that they received, which tremendously helped us because private EMS did not get any funding from COVID. The money was sent to ARPA to the counties and cities to pay for taxing authority, the EMS agency kind of stuff, privately needing that. There were a couple small tranches that we got over a period of time, but very little. And so Judge come to me and asked me about setting up a clinic for the COVID, and we did. We took a very big loss at that when we set it up, but we determined that our citizens need to be protected because of the elderly, and we set that up. And the county reimbursed us a portion of that they got reimbursed from FEMA over time. So that is the end of our revenue cycle, basically, for donations. We operate 31 full-time EMS people. We have licensed 8 ambulances. We run 24 hours a day. We have staffing. We currently operate 2 stations. One's leased, one we own. We have 3 on the books that should open up in 25 that the county granted us funds to build, and we're in the process of doing that. It will be shared with fire departments in 3 different locations. Right now, growth is about 6.4% and call volume each year for us, due to the influx of personnel, and as our retirees get older, the call volume picks up. Hood County itself is growing 2.2% a year, the city of Granbury is 6.2%, and then our housing growth 6.2%. This should show you a lot of people are moving in here. A lot of those are younger families, so we don't see a lot of those other accidents start getting into health issues. 60 to 75% is the fastest growing people in this county, and it's 48% increase, and 72% of our call volume is for those people, and they are Medicare or Medicaid. And Medicare and Medicaid limits what they will pay me, and it doesn't meet my cost. That's how the government is. The poverty rate in Hood County is 10.2%, and the city of Granbury is 12.6%. EMS is the first entry to healthcare for people that don't have money. Not the hospital, most expensive ER visit, not urgent care, same thing, and most of them don't have physicians. EMS, because they think it's funded by somebody else, and they call us, so we have a tremendous amount of our indigents that come in here. Our indigents are not defined like hers, in that she goes through the process of finding out their financial statuses. Basically, our indigent is people that use the service but don't pay for it, and that right now is about 20% of our call volume. Right now, I have 3 units, 3 ambulances over 350,000 miles. I have 3 units over 200,000 miles. I have 2 new units right at 50,000 miles. So I have an aging fleet. With aging fleet comes cost. We have 2 on order. 1 in the county purchased for us. It should be here the first quarter of 25. We have a sister truck that's been ordered since 22. We're hoping to see it sometime in November. I have 9 LifePak monitor defibrillators. I have 7 of those that I was informed are no longer serviceable and no longer have parts for those. I have 8 Lucas devices. 5 of those are no longer serviceable. As a entity that provides medical, I have to ensure that they're calibrated and maintained every year. So we now have to go out and look at replacing those 8 monitor defibrillators and those Lucas devices. Our quote is $745,000 for those 8. So I have to find funding for that, or I have to find a lease payment or something to be able to do that. That's coming up this next budget cycle. I have 9 stretchers. A stretcher costs $23,000. I have 6 of those that are approaching their end of life, meaning they won't replace, they won't repair, and they'll have to be replaced. I also have power loaders that lift them up and put them inside the ambulances. Same thing with the Con has. 6 of those also approaching the end of life. Their end of life is 7 years. And after that, newer models come out. If there is a newer model, totally different than our current model. So we can't get parts for some of our stuff. We spend over $230,000 a year on ambulance payment that I pay every year. I spend $126,000 on equipment lease, which are my monitor defibrillators on our stretchers. We're adding 3 additional stations, and I'm not sure what that cost is because it's unknown until we open those up. We will cost share with fire departments, but again, I don't know what that cost is. We currently have a crisis going on amongst my staff because I'm losing staff pretty regularly. I have 4 openings right now. It's pretty much runs that way. And when I have openings, I have to drop an ambulance because I can't run a fully staffed ambulance. Right now, we're about 12% below market, and I'm losing people to Parker County and Hamilton County for that. So we got to increase that, and that's about $300,000 a year that I've got to come up with to try to do that. I just got notified that our healthcare insurance is going up 20% over last year. BFIS, which is the insurance carrier that insures my ambulances, went up 12%. My workers' comp increased 20%. With all these additional costs, where I'm getting to this is my request and my need from the hospital district for funding. COVID during, the pandemic did not help us at all. It hurt us as an EMS agency. We were able to take care of our citizens. The county and the city helped a lot for that, and we're very appreciative of that. Our commercial insurance is paying lower than the cost, and healthcare reform has kicked in, and I no longer can balance bill my patients. As of January this past year, that's $350,000 that I no longer can receive that I used to get. Blue Cross Blue Shield asked for money back this past year. They went back 5 years and pulled that money back. We received some of it, but not all of it. And every day they continually pull back another piece of that. And how that impacts me is I'm expecting $100 from Blue Cross Blue Shield in my budget. They don't pay that $100 and they put it towards something else, so I lose that $100 plus paying back $100. For operationally, it's $200. That makes sense. Medicare has not increased payments. I've been doing this 45 years. I don't know when they've increased payments. And there's no talk of doing that. And we have an increased population of Medicare patients. Medicaid, there's been no increase in the last 30 years. That there actually has been 2 cuts in the last 10 years. And our Medicaid, and she can attest to this as well, our Medicaid is beginning to increase because of the pods and Crescent and other lower income families are seeking help from the government for medical coverage. And then we have 20% of our indigents that don't pay. They still request the service, it still costs the same, and mainly my cost is readiness. When I turn a wheel, I have fuel costs, maintenance costs, and maybe some supply issues, but my just ready, available, be here when you call me is where the costs reside. But the issues are my aging fleet, my aging equipment, losing staff. So my ask, in 2019 I started coming to these meetings when I first got here. I told my board then that we could not sustain our current business model of reimbursements only and increase with the needs this community is going to ask for. I started coming to these meetings. You ask me every time, are you gonna ask for money? Are you gonna ask for money? And my reply was, someday I will. I'm not asking to be made whole. I'm not asking for this district to make up my losses. I'm asking for what I need to make 911 available based on my needs, which is the community needs, and what it takes to run this operation. We have projected growth that is going to very soon increase as soon as that sewer plant opens up. What I'm asking for is 20% of my budget. I'm not asking to fill the differences, and you have a graph in there, it's all purple. That is my net profit every year, and you'll see it's a considerable loss every year. And you're gonna say, how are you operating? Before COVID, we built up a healthy rainy day fund. And we have tapped into that rainy day fund to the point now that we borrowed money this last January to continue to operate. I'm asking 20% of my budget. That equates from my last year expenses, $832,892. But if I include what I need coming in my next year budget, which starts in January, that number would go to $960,000. Because I have to add for employee salaries. I have to add and find replacement equipment. Unfortunately, we have nowhere to go for that. You ask, okay, what if we don't do this? What if the bond fails? We've discussed that as well. I've reached out to Commissioner's Court at some point and see what we can do to look at maybe picking us up that way. Otherwise, we start reducing staff ambulances to meet my revenue. So whatever, just like you do a household, you start turning lights on, the electric bill goes up. We stop putting ambulances out when I can't staff them with people and pay for it. We've not had salary increases since 22, and you see that on one of the graphs. It's flat. We had 8.5% last year in cost of living. My people had to absorb that, as well as my organization. I have no replacement equipment other than what we have currently ordered. I need to have 2 ambulances currently right now ordered, because it will take another year to 18 months to get those. My next look is ESD, which is a taxing authority. I don't want to do that. I think based on the mission and the legislative criteria for the hospital district, this is where it needs to be in the hospital district. I know I mentioned a lot. I know it's a lot. And in your graph, you'll see my revenue and you'll see my expenses, and you'll see that it doesn't meet. It's a loss every year. You'll see my salaries, they're increasing, but they've been stagnant for 22 because I have not been able to get raises. And I hear it every day. The other one you see there is the losses that we have, and then you'll see the makeup of what we have is where our revenue comes from. I would be glad to have a discussion privately about my budget, anything in that. But unfortunately, not like the senior center or Mission Grant or others, there's nobody here taking those organizations over. Mine will be. They're already asking. And now that we're talking about subsidy, people want to see those numbers, that's why I won't put them out, because they'll use that against me. And it's not worth that. I'll entertain any questions anyone has.
So I have two questions. Crystal, one, the minutes being recorded, so we will be able to get a written copy of the outline that he has discussed in terms of cost and things of that nature, right?
Yes, if you'd like that included in the minutes, we can put it.
And I'll leave a copy of that.
Oh, you have copies
I
already?
will leave a copy of it, I didn't leave a copy, but I'll leave it with her so that she can make sure it's in
No,
it.
if you have copies, that would be great, because I would like to be able to review those.
Okay.
Number two, just, if nothing changed, how long would you, based on everything you outlined, what's the life expectancy of your operation?
To be honest with you, it's kind of unknown, but I don't think it's gonna go much past the first quarter. And what will happen is, we will still be in operation, we will start reducing the number of
First
animals.
quarter of 2025, to be clear, okay.
And the reason why it's an unknown is we changed our billing company, and they're just now beginning to ramp up, and we don't know what those exact numbers are gonna be on average. Which should be, we're going into our busier months, and so there's a very strong possibility that we could swing upward. We won't make a profit, but we should have a lot less of the loss that we're anticipating. Right now, it's projected $1 million loss.
And just so I know the severity of your situation, your personal ambulance care situation, if in fact it was over with in the first quarter, what coverage would there be in Hood County for, let's say, 80% of the population, excluding some of the HOAs in the community?
We will continue to cover this community as long as we can, as long as our board will keep us going. It just will be at a reduced number of ambulances, which means people will wait for an ambulance until there's one available. So a car wreck could wait for quite a while to get an ambulance, until I can get you delayed to come in, or if you're having a heart attack. This model was great when this community wasn't growing much, but since I've been here since 18, it's just went through the roof. And we were not designed with our model to accommodate that growth. We had nowhere to get the money, because we rely strictly on transports. So we get a lot of calls for patients, for instance, diabetics, and we treat them, give them medicine, but they don't ride in. I cannot bill it. I can only bill somebody if they are transported. And so, those 911 calls, Saturday night, or Friday night, we had 4 helicopters from Major Wreck at James Road. It took every one of my ambulances. Now, I had dropped an ambulance, I only had 3 on duty because I had to drop one at 7 o'clock, but we were able to handle it and take care of our patients. But if we had gotten other calls at the same time that was going on, and I believe Randall was on down to one truck and couldn't help me, we'd have to rely on mutual aid. Right now, we should be running 6 ambulances for this community.
If you go out of business, your business goes out of business and doesn't cover Hood County, another ambulance service would come in, and they would charge a whole lot more.
They're gonna come in and get before you or commissioners,
Yeah.
they're gonna ask for a subsidy, just like Johnson County or others. There's not anyone that can operate without assistance from a taxing authority. It just doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. And that's because of healthcare reform, ever since COVID, the gigantic increases in the salary and all the things associated with running the operation.
Well, we thank you for what you and your folks are going through.
No, and I appreciate that, and we are seeking assistance, and I think this bond is good for that. I think if you go by indigent care only, it will fail. I think you've got to include EMS with that, and that's Brown and I and indigent care, and probably need to be worded differently.
Yes, sir.
The people want us to be here, and they understand it. It's just,
have any more questions or things to say in the open meeting?
On this chart, it doesn't have any numbers. What's the scale over here?
That scale is on the front.
Oh, it's the same scale as the front?
That just breaks down where their revenue comes from. If you'll look at that revenue right there, that's the same, that just shows where it's coming from.
Okay.
It just shows that they're broken out where 3 different places the revenue comes from. If you look at the revenue and expenses, that revenue is that revenue. And the reason I didn't put numbers in there is it's a public meeting and it's public record.
Anyone else have anything to say in audience? Okay.
I have a question on the proposed budget. Right now, we're showing, is now the time to ask?
We're still in open meeting, so.
Should we not include something for legal fees? Right now, we have nothing. So our next budget year starts October first.
Okay, that's reasonable.
Which means that, I don't know when the last payment to McCall will be, but since the election's not till the 5th of November, and I'm not sure, we might have other legal
Come up with
expenses.
a number for
Yeah.
the legal fee, that's reasonable. Okay. Is that enough for open meeting? Gentleman in the back,
I'm Rick Manchin, the GM out of, Randall, is it Randall?
will you come up here so we can hear you?
Oh, you're I'm sorry, I didn't sort of see Randall right here.
He can come up too.
But, well, no, I was just, I see that, just listening to what was going on here, with Texas and UMass here, that I don't see any allocations. Is this where we're all getting together to plead for some of the monies that may be allocated to the different EMSs? Because there's not really any kind of breakdown of what I got, where if this passes, where it's all allocated to.
Come closer, because I still don't understand what you're asking.
I'm just asking on this budget that I have, I don't know if there's more that I don't have, but I was just asking whether, if there's been any consideration of where all of the monies, if the new taxes pass, where that's all gonna be allocated to.
So like of the 1 million, what
Of the
we're.
1 million.
That it's not gonna go all to Ricky Reeves. It would possibly go to people who cover Hood County, and Pecan Plantations covers part of Hood County. Now, they don't cover all of Hood County, but they do help occasionally when they can.
Well, my question is then, if we don't have numbers put together here, you're asking the members at Pecan to vote for this to come in and not knowing what their take is on it.
Okay, that's reasonable, not knowing what we're gonna pay you, what do you wanna vote for, right?
So that's something I'd like to take back to the membership when we get that chance, but if we don't know that before we go vote, I don't know where we're at with that.
Essentially what we had been thinking was 100% is the county, and Pecan is about 20 to 25%. So if it was $1 million, then Pecan's ambulance would get about 20 to 25% of that. And that's the wagon method.
Okay, well, that's okay,
Yeah.
I just, there wasn't anything really detailed on this, so.
To make it clear then, we probably ought to take ambulance services, Kevin,
And break it out.
and break it out into Hood County and Pecan, actually call out Pecan.
Right.
in the budget.
I don't disagree with that, and Pecan is right at 20% of the population of the county. And, I mean, that amount of coverage would make sense.
To the point that's being made, to Mr. Hankton's point, as it relates to the message that goes back to Pecan. Pecan represents probably 1,700 votes that are cast in any kind of election be it the HOA or be it on government issues as it relates to what goes on in the county. They vote on nothing as it relates to the city. Now, the question that's being asked, and the purpose, I think, for the discussion, phone discussion that I had, that I copied you on and had, that to be able to have the pecan PPOA people understand and vote, or have a reasonable knowledge of how they would look to vote, is to know what kind of monies would be going in there that could be positioned correctly by Rick, such that people would say, this makes sense because we have a stress in our county on ambulance service, but there's also, I think rightfully stated, there's a stress on ambulance service in Pecan, because when the tone goes out on 911, Pecan gets the same tone that Ricky gets. And so somebody's gonna cover that call. And I think that's what's particularly being asked right now, is as clear a definition of what we can provide as it relates to resources to the two combined, recognizing that they're more helpful than they're competitive with each other. It's all about survival. And quite frankly, I think the best way to position it is that we show that. Now, I don't know if De Cordova has an ambulance service, and I don't know.
It's the only two
No,
ambulance
it's just
services I
Pecan.
know of in the entire county.
Yeah, and so that, and I apologize that when I got the call, I'm trying to remember, I have it in my notes. I let Christy know, and I let Commissioner Samus know that I got the call because she represents Pecan. And I advised that individual to make direct contact with both if they had questions in their mind. And so I encourage that you guys be here for this open hearing today, so that clarity could be given such that the Pecan members would know exactly what's going on in this vote.
One of the concerns that I had, if we're talking 20-25% of the total subsidy, I don't think that's gonna completely make up what Pecan residents are already paying in dues. So a subsidy from Hood County, while generously intended, will need to make up what we are going to potentially lose in terms of our due structure. But I'm not going to charge Pecan residents an assessment fee for EMS, and then they turn around and pay a property tax for the same EMS. We're double dipping, in essence.
Well, they're paying you $20 a month, right?
Correct.
And
If
Is that you or you in fire?
that's us and fire, and it goes into a general fund, it's not split evenly, which is a completely other, separate conversation to have. But we need to, it needs to be addressed. We can't have people paying $20 a month for fire and EMS, and then they're also paying a property tax. That doesn't equate to what we're already making off of the assessment dues, what's already being provided.
well,
Does
if
that
you have
make
a $1
sense?
million house in Pecan, how much would 2 cents cost?
For, what is it, 2 cents over 1,000 or 100,000? Okay. But is that going to equate to this?
It'd be $20 per $100,000 house.
Okay.
So,
But my concern as always is it going to equate to the assessment fee that we're already gathering right now?
Well,
And it sounds like it's gonna get, the property tax is gonna go through one way or the other.
disband the whole thing.
So your assessment though, of $20 a household, it equates to, what, 70 grand?
About 65 a month.
And we're talking about $250,000 to $300,000 from this, if it
No, it's
passes.
on, Terry, it's on a monthly basis, it's over $700,000 on a yearly
It
basis.
should be over
It's about
here.
850,000
850?
in assessment that goes,
So you get an additional 250 to what, 300?
Well, but what you need, what is being said here for clarity, and if I'm wrong, please tell me.
Well, it may be me who's unclear.
No, but what's being said is that there would be an assumption that based upon what the con members might read into the county providing assistance for the ambulance service, there would be a reaction that would suggest that, well, why am I paying the $20 subsidy? And they might wind up losing more money than they got from the county.
Or doing away with Pecan Plantation's ambulance service.
But we also can't have the residents of Pecan hold the rest of the county hostage.
I didn't say that.
No, I get that, but
And-
because we're paying
and that's not the intent. I mean, like I said, I think this entire subsidy discussion is benevolently meant. I mean, I think the intentions are good. And I agree with Ricky, everything he said is factual, I'm in the same boat. You know, we don't have the staffing issues, people come and they tend to stick, but my equipment is getting older. My ambulances are newer, so we're not encountering that. Our call volume is, of course, nowhere near what Texas's is, but ours is increasing as well. You know, it used to be you go a month and have maybe 15 calls, and now we're breaking 100, 150 every month. So we're running. So everything he's saying is true, and operating costs are going up.
Well, and I keep equating this back to a city. If you look at the way Cleburne operates, okay, AMR doesn't answer calls inside the city limits of Cleburne. The people inside the city of Cleburne still pay those county taxes that's funding AMR, yet they're paying for an elevated service. They're paying for somebody right here, right now. And they can adjust that cost to their taxpayers accordingly. And I think that you're kind of in this same scenario here where, you know, I don't know what it costs to make that whole. I don't know what your difference may be. That's not really what Ricky's asking for with Texas EMS. So I mean, I think we're kind of apples and oranges.
Well, we are. Texas EMS, you know, whether they get subsidized or not, their operations don't change. They're gonna get paid to do the job they're currently doing right now. It will change how we structure our fee schedule in Pecan though, because we do have a different structure.
No, and that's what I'm saying. So
if
we make, you know, if we say, okay, it's an 80-20 split and 20% of this funding, so you guys get $200,000, you can go back to your HOA board and say, okay, let's reduce the $20 a month.
And that is the intent. The intent is to reduce the assessment that residents are currently paying, but I need to make sure that I'm still pulling in enough to cover that reduction.
Sure. And I mean, you know, how you complete your revenues in order to cover your expenses. Yeah, I mean, that's.
And I also sent Commissioner Samuelson an email this morning with our budget and everything, and there were 3 items that I think at some point need to be discussed. And one of them is this, the other one is our interfacility transfer contract, the subsidy and the monies that brings in, and also the fact that Pecan EMS ambulances are slated for Pecan. I'd like something, some sort of interlocal agreement or contract, something that says within the boundaries, this is a Pecan EMS territory, and we're not gonna be going out and working as a Hood County asset.
Well, see,
because Ricky's got the Hood County contract.
But if Ricky's at level 0,
mutual aid agreements are completely different. When you request, hey, I need some help, then you pop out if you can, you do what you can, you come back. But my concern, like I brought up several times already at these meetings, is that our Pecan ambulances are gonna end up getting posted up in Lipan, Crescent, Toller, wherever there is an underserved but high volume area, because Texas EMS may be running with 3 trucks, and you need somebody just to post up out there.
well, I mean,
Now, is that a violation of this contract? I definitely can't have Pecan ambulances get pulled out. I've gotta keep them covered.
heck, we can't even. I mean, Texas EMS can't even put an ambulance in Lipan and.
Well, I understand,
So that's-
but if Hood County says we're currently subsidizing your operations, I need one of your trucks up here to help bolster Texas EMS. Not a mutual aid call, but an actual post up out there until they can break free. I can see you disagree, Ricky, but I mean, what's the answer then?
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. That's not the way.
Well, we need something
operation,
right.
well, but for this to happen, it'll have to be something right between me and the hospital district and you and the hospital district. But the
Yeah,
thing-
That's what I'm
and
asking for.
I don't think that that's a reasonable thing, and I don't think that we would be asking you for that. I think
Okay.
that we would say, hey, if Ricky's at level 0 and you got an ambulance sitting there and there's a call, you know,
Well,
maybe
well,
inside Granbury
I
or
mean, once
something.
again, that's a mutual aid agreement, and that's a different animal. I'm talking about these trucks being utilized as a Hood County asset versus a Pecan asset.
I'll tell you this, I don't think that that's reasonable. I don't think that the hospital district would be asking that of you. It's,
Okay,
you
but-
know, I mean,
Then is it a problem to have some kind of an agreement?
no, I don't
Okay.
think so. I mean, that's what that looks like, what it would have to be drawn up and
And
figured out.
that's why I wanna
That's-
start
right.
discussions.
Right, no,
That's
I
all.
don't think that's unreasonable, but I don't think it's also unreasonable for us to say, hey, you know, we're in a pickle here, can you help us out? And you
Well,
guys.
I mean, once
absolutely.
again, that's a mutual aid agreement, and we have those established already. If there's a call somewhere and he's at level 0, we do get mutual aid calls.
Well, and vice versa.
And we respond, and they respond in the Pecan, when we're at level 0. But my
Right,
concern
if
is,
there's a pecan plantation person has a car accident in Lipan, does Pecan send an ambulance to Lipan?
no, of course not, Texas
No, of course
CMS
not.
will cover it
Yeah.
unless they're at
So
level
this is
0. Then we
together.
exactly,
Yeah.
but I can't have my trucks just sitting out there in the county waiting for a call to drop.
I don't think that we would ever.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think your protocols will let you post outside of Pecan unless it's mutual aid.
I agree with you, but again, my concern is when you start taking money from a county entity, people start renegotiating the terms of contracts and protocols on the fly.
I think the only thing that would be asked is that you have that MOU with Texas EMS for level 0 situations.
In which we currently have in place.
I don't know that anything's gonna change on that.
Right, I would be opposed to anything like that, Frank.
Okay.
I'll say that on the record, that,
All right.
you know, I would anticipate there's, you know, you respond to calls outside the gates of Pecan, it's not just a super exclusive in there, like the mutual aid that we're doing right now.
Correct.
I would anticipate that.
And the business as usual is fine, I mean, that's what we're here to do, is
Yeah.
support each other.
Yeah,
But-
and I think that's what we're looking for. I think we're trying to get everybody, we see a need. This is we're at a pretty critical juncture on this thing, and I
agree.
think that we see a need. And I want everybody to work together. I think that it's good.
I agree.
To solve everybody's problem at the same time. I think we're all.
I think he also said, is if we do get to 200,000, is there gonna be, sometimes there's always an expectation out of that money. And if we had, I think Brian was trying to say, if we had something that said there is no expectation for getting that money, that in writing, that would be a good thing.
Well, I don't know if we can say it quite that, there can't be no expectation. I mean, there has to be some
Well,
expectation.
that right there leaves room for future boards to reinterpret our agreement, so.
I think every year there's reinterpreting. That's, every time that check comes in, there's gonna be different people on the board, different people on your board, and that all, gets very, very.
Which is why some kind of foundational pillar that we can say, hey, this is where we're starting from.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like I said, I think we're all trying to achieve the same goal. We're focused on people are in need.
I agree.
There's a car crash right here. Let's get somebody to them as fast as humanly possible and make sure that they have the supplies, equipment, trained personnel to do so.
I completely
when they
agree.
respond. So I think we're all on the same page. There's some details that we would need to work out, but I don't think what you're asking for is unreasonable.
Okay,
So-
I appreciate it, thanks.
Thank you.
So just,
Thank you, gentlemen.
yeah, so I was just doing some, Rick and Brandon, I was just doing some calculations based on, so we had said earlier that 1.818,584 may be what ends up being the, tax revenue plus the other smaller revenues that are on this yellow sheet. So just did several different tax rates. The one that came the closest was really, 0.014, which yields about 1.96 million. So at that tax rate, that would be for an average home in the county, which we learned from our tax assessor was 334,000, is about $46.76. For a $500,000 home, $70. So you could add that to the 240 assessment, and for a $500,000 home is $310,000. I'm sorry, $310 a year, and for the average home of $334,000, with the pecan assessment and the tax rate is $286. So did I, the 14?
No, where are you getting that? Cause whenever I added this all up, I just shot at 1.8 million.
Okay.
With 14 billion, and I got 0.128 cents would give us the 1.8.
I just did 14 billion divided by 100 times tax
Right,
rate.
no, I mean, where did you come up with the 1.96?
140.
All right, I didn't know if you got an expense over here that you were trying to get to 100 or 1.96
No, I was just taking the
million.
total taxable value divided by 100.
Okay, all right, I thought, yeah, cause it looks to me like we're right at 1.85 million
At 2 cents.
in expense. No, that's expense.
Yeah, I was just taking the,
I was trying to get the expenses and then figure out the tax rate that
which is the
provides
best way to do
that.
it, yes, that's the best
Yeah.
way to do it. I was just going off of the total taxable value, which our chief appraiser told us was about 14 billion, divided by 100, times a tax rate of 0.0140 is 1.960, so I was just generalizing those numbers, but Commissioner Andrews is correct. We need to work through the budget, figure out what the expenses are, and then set the tax rate. I was just doing a general, what it could be.
There are a lot of exemptions that, and we have discussed the taxing, but this is under budget. Now, we're still in the open meeting for proposed budget, and I'd like to close it, and then we can go to, do we have any problems with closing the open? Okay, the open meeting is closed, and now we'll go to 2.2, discuss and take appropriate action to approve the proposed 2025 budget. And since the proposed amended budget number 2, it is in yellow, is going to have some changes. We will put it on the next.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table 2.2.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay. Samuelson and, what's your name, Neil?
Samuelson and Wilson,
Okay.
or Stanford, I don't know who seconded it.
Any discussions? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bless you. Amen. Okay, it passes. Next, 2.3. Take appropriate action to hold a public hearing on the proposed tax rate. Okay, we've now got an open meeting for the tax rate. Anybody want to talk?
Well, I've got a couple of numbers here, and I think that we're, yeah, who'd have guessed? If we are, I feel that if we go in at the 1.8 million, we can make up, we're undershooting a little bit, we do still have the fund balance. We could pull that difference from the fund balance where, probably $50,000 at most. But, with it still being a little bit nebulous, I think that once you subtract these other, well, there's, $18,000 in the,
Other end.
yeah, that other revenue sources there, so I would like to see us target that, 1.8 million.
I want as
make
little
up for
taxes as
the-
possible too.
Right, Right.
But we voted on 2 cents, and that's what we've been working with. And if it comes up to be too much money, we'll reduce the taxes next year.
Well,
And because we don't want to get more money in than we absolutely have to.
Right.
But trying to figure out how much you're gonna spend is a wild guess. I mean, the sheriff last time, when he brought forth what he was having to spend, his folks, and one patient, one individual in the jail needed nearly $20,000 of medication. These are wild guesses. We never know what's gonna happen. With all the way Hood County has grown and the number of indigents, and God bless Krista because she makes the indigents actually be indigent instead of someone from one of the areas in Hood County that lied about everything and was an indigent, and we paid for them for a few years. We only pay for what we have to pay.
Well,
All
and
of the taxpayers, we don't wanna pay any more taxes than we have to.
Sure, and I think that we approached this thing under the assumption that we were gonna have similar exemptions and caps and everything to what the county has in place. And those are vastly different numbers in revenue. If we do 2 cents at 14 million, we're talking 3.8 million, $2.8 million in revenue. And that's way over where we need to be.
Absolutely need.
So I think scaling.
Reduce it next year, yeah.
Well, I think scale it now, because that's a huge source of revenue, and it's a significant increase to the taxpayer.
Okay, but
Let's
you wanna
make
have
that
enough
increase to
to
the
cover,
tax. No, I understand.
to cover this that you think is gonna happen, but you need, but maybe not that much.
Right,
But
Yeah.
right.
we also have the fund balance, which was the only source of revenue, but now
Yeah.
it's the rainy day, so to speak, the rainy day fund. If we don't have a budget that supports a 2% tax rate,
Yeah.
I mean, we put it, and I'm not sure that after listening to Ricky and, we haven't had a chance to look at Brandl's information, but I'm not sure $1 million is the right number. It might need to be 1.2. So we need to set the tax rate based on what our budget,
So
comes out.
1.5 cents or 1.75 cents?
Well,
I think you need more than $1 million, Ricky, both of y'all do, from what
Yeah.
y'all talking about, your equipment, your ambulances and everything else, you need more than $1 million, that's not gonna get you any points.
If we put them at $2 million,
Well, you got a couple of things going on here. One, you've got the increase in population, you've got a bond election coming up that you're gonna ask to build a new jail, and if that passes, you're gonna add 200 plus new beds. The county commissioners put it on the district board to fund those needs. Plus, you're going to have increased indigent care. And so, if you look at what the 2 cents does, if you remember 96, the tax rate was 15 cents per $100 valuation, period. And they dropped it from 15 to 0. Now, hindsight being 2020, I'm trying to figure out what calculations in their loving mind made them make that decision that they needed to go to 0. What calculations, Kevin, did they really do? And I'm not belittling what you're saying. I agree. Nobody wants to pay more taxes than are out there. But the 2 cents, I think, based upon what we've heard this morning from the two parties that have spoken as it relates to what we may be encountering with the possibility of 0 ambulance service, the 2 cents is an appropriate number in my mind.
then show me on a budget.
Yeah.
You have to budget that money. we have to look at our expenses. Now, if you say, hey, we need to put $1,000 in, or $1 million in savings, that's how we get to this number, then,
But if we get this tax, we can change the budget anytime we want to vote to change the budget to give them more money.
I don't think so. You have to do that next budget.
Well, how about adding an expense side up here for equipment? God, Ricky, you're gonna have equipment. Both of you are gonna have equipment, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
How are you sitting up here thinking that you're gonna be able to operate without buying any new equipment?
No, you have a valid point. You don't have anything for, a rainy day fund. You're putting zero money away for that.
well, we've got $2.5 million
Yeah,
in the
it's
rainy day
already-
fund right now.
Yeah, the rainy day fund is $2.5 million already, which was, if we weren't sitting here doing this, it would be paying for next year's budget.
I agree with the judge, and I know I'm not asking for the receiver, and what they're asking, and I see what you're saying. Put me a budget together to reflect that and go for it. So, I think you've already closed that hearing on that, but you need to redo your budget to reflect what you truly need. And he's right, you're getting a jail coming in, there's 200 more beds that's gonna have to come to here for you to pay. That you need to think about, because that's gonna happen sometime in 25.
This gentleman would like to speak also.
Commissioner Andrews and Commissioner Sampson, I appreciate not wanting to pay more taxes, and I don't want to pay taxes more than I have to. No one in this room does. But we're a growing county. Ricky and Brando have equipment that's getting old. It's gonna have to be replaced. The judge said that. There's no contingency in the budget. There should be some savings for future use. I've heard about Parker County EMS and how they were different than us, and how they kept a tax in place, and they have, if I remember, $90 million in the bank. The $90 million, you can solve any problem. We have almost no money in the bank. Our problem is we can't pay the bills next year. So we shouldn't come up with a tax rate that barely covers our foreseen expenses. We should go with a contingency amount, a savings amount to handle those future expenses. When Ricky needs a new ambulance, when the county grows. I mean, Ricky, you say we need 6 ambulances. You need 6. You have 4 now.
No, I have 8 ambulances. I should have staff, 6 ambulances on the road.
But
I need staff.
Staffing for an ambulance, if I remember, you said about
$600,000
$600,000 a year per ambulance. Now, maybe we don't want to bite off one chunk, but we need to be thinking for the future as we grow. We have to increase the funding for a growing county. 1.4 cents will barely cover us, but it doesn't plan for the future. 2 cents certainly plans for the future. We can debate if that's a little too high, maybe it's 1.8, but it's certainly not 1.4 in my mind. That's just not enough to cover the future, my opinion.
Well, and I guess my thought is if we're going in right now with a fund balance, as it were, greater than our annual budget. So we have 100% of that budget in reserves, is my thought. The higher we make this, the less chance it has of passing also. I think we have to consider that. We have to go in there and say, hey, what is that dollar figure that somebody says, you've crossed the line, you've asked for too much?
Can you change that next year? Can you increase it?
Right,
Yes,
exactly, that's
yes,
what I
you
was gonna
can.
say.
There's
But you're asking for 2 cents, so you can only go up to 2 cents.
No, I asked that last time. Once you have a revenue established, then everything goes off of that revenue. And being a special district, you can increase that revenue 8% per year, unlike with the county where it's only 3.5%.
So what we need to do is have a budget that's transparent, that shows exactly what's needed, including whatever the subsidy is to EMS. And what they do with their subsidy is up to them. If they spend it on equipment, if they spend it on salaries, if they spend it on, I don't know, and other things, as long as it's EMS related, that is their decision as the EMS. We're just providing the subsidy, but what we need to do is have a budget that we can show the taxpayers that reflects the tax rate that's being asked for. And if that is, you know, and I agree with Commissioner Andrews that we already have a $2.5 million quote, fund balance rainy day fund. If next year we end up pulling some from that because we undershot the tax rate, well, next year at this time, we'll be sitting here again, putting a proposed budget together in a different tax rate. So it's not a one and done. Every year you set the tax rate.
And if we say, hey, I don't think the $1 million is enough, let's make it 1.3. That's fine. We can come to that conclusion and that decision, but I think that it needs to go into the budget, and then I think that the tax rate needs to reflect that.
So what, if what you're saying, you know, 1.3 for the ambulance in both entities, Pecan and Hood County, then what does he have to provide Krista to support that side of the equation? She has to be included in that equation, right?
The jail inmates.
And the inmates and everything? What's that number?
Was you mean besides her salary that's on here? I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, we've discussed it in the past, that we have to take care of the indigent people plus the inmates in the jail. What is that total figure? What's that estimate gonna be for next year? I mean.
Well,
I thought that was what was getting to the 1.8 something.
That's what the 630 right
Just
now
put
we
a skin in
have.
your teeth and a hopeful that.
No, I mean, she's like me, and it's gonna change, it's gonna get higher, and the cost of healthcare is getting higher, so.
Yeah,
That number's gonna be smaller. so
well,
it's insufficient.
we budgeted indigent care at $636,000.
Okay, you add that to your 1.3.
What's 1.3?
It's a number I came up with, and somebody said, well, hey, is it enough? Maybe we look more at,
What's
1.3
1.3?
million to subsidize the
Oh, okay.
ambulances and future costs.
So that's 1.9.
That kind of thing.
So now you're close to 2.
We're a penny and a half to get 2.1 million in revenue.
Yeah, so it's not 2 cents, it's 2 cents gets more than 2 million, right? So,
But again, if we go to what you're saying, rate, and we end up with, having to pull money from the fund that is there, and we haven't done our job real well. We need to go somewhere between your figure and the 2 cent figure in order to help that balance out with the better.
Well, and
we need
it's,
to redo the budget and then figure out what the tax rate is to support the budget, and we can't do that without working on the budget, in my opinion.
yeah, like I said, let's put the needs that we need in the budget. Then have the tax rate justify or meet those needs. So, I think that's the direction that we need to go on that. That's my opinion.
So do you need to reopen the budget?
Yes, I mean, that's what we said that's why we tabled the item right before this.
Right.
We're going to.
Tax rate.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Push it out a year.
We have to do a tax rate today. Now, I'm fixing to close the public hearing unless any of the public wants to speak.
Why do we have to do
And then we'll open it back up for our board members to discuss and take appropriate action. Any public hearing that needs to be talked about? There is none, then we'll go to 2.4, discuss and take appropriate action to approve the proposed tax rate. Okay, now, we can talk about what we wanted the hospital district board of directors members wanna do. Do you wanna stay with the 2 pennies, or do you wanna change it?
Change it. Well, I don't think that we can, according to the statute, it says we have to have a proposed budget before we can set a tax rate, so I'm not comfortable at all setting a tax rate when we don't have a budget that supports it.
Well, then we can't have a tax on the November election,
It has to be done today,
Why?
period.
because that is state
Statute.
law.
That's the statute.
Statute says you will establish it And it has to be done today, time-wise.
Yes,
Where's
By
your
statute.
jumping at? Cause that's not what our 1042 says.
well, whatever your 1042, the state law says we have to do this either
Right here.
Friday, Saturday, or today. And it's today, so I make a motion, we stay with 2 pennies, and that's
No, second.
okay. All in favor, say aye. I'm sorry, any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Of course. Y'all in favor? Say aye. Okay. There's 8 of us, so it's 6 to 8, it passes, it stays at 2 cents. None of us are gonna pay taxes, but if we end up with too much money, we will reduce taxes next year, and we will donate money to the ambulance services that need it, and we will cover all of the indigent care and all of the jail inmates and the physicians and the nurses that cover all the jail inmates 24/7, 365 days a year.
I just want it noted that since I didn't say it out loud and this is being audio recorded and not video recorded, I raised my hand to be nay. I want it recorded that I am opposed to taking the vote today, as it is not per the statute of the hospital district, Special District Code 1042. We do not have a budget established, so I don't know how we can set a tax rate on a budget that we don't have.
Okay, that will be in the minutes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. 2.6, discuss and take appropriate action, Linda Pavlik and Pavlik Associates. I'm sorry. 2.5, discuss and take appropriate action to approve order calling a tax ratification election to be held November 5th, 2024. Okay. Need a motion to have a tax ratification election on November 5th.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Right.
Okay, you don't wanna have a tax.
Well, we haven't followed the procedures, so
6-0.
I don't know how we
Michael's
can
not here. Okay,
ratify an election when we haven't followed the procedures.
Yeah.
That's enough.
yeah. Okay. 2.6, discuss and take appropriate action, Linda Pavlik with Pavlik and Associates to discuss literature that will be distributed to the Hood County community of the need for our HCHD tax.
Okay, but one thing that I don't know if you would be able to find, but didn't we have I'm kind of jumping into the, attorneys for the election that we hired, special counsel, had the date set out on when we had to make these decisions. And that's why and I don't have it, I wish I'd brought my notes, but do we think we can find that? That might help clarify the difference between what that is and what our legal counsel told us, because in my own brain, I was working, on the.
There it is, right here.
Well, I think it's,
All this thing, about the six.
a new point at this juncture, I don't think it matters.
Well, from a standpoint, so you're saying, well, what she was saying, that she was, let me make sure I'm understanding, that you were opposed to it because we didn't have a budget.
Right, that's.
Okay, and because according to that, now, I'm looking at this other document, and I think our legal counsel was remiss if they didn't advise you in such a way that this makes sense. But if you're looking here, board conducts a meeting, adopts a tax rate, record vote, 60% approved. Okay, that's, we had to do that today. So we have done it without the full unanimous vote.
Well, without following, right before that, it said, board conducts a meeting and adopts a budget. That was supposed to happen on August 9th.
Well, if you, okay.
But the budget does not reflect the correct information. This does not reflect the tax rate, so.
Who's responsible for doing that? And the reason I'm even interjecting it is if you want me to make sense out of it as I write about it, So who is responsible for having prepared that budget? Just clarify that for me.
Who's been working with our, accounting firm,
The accounting firm would have done the budget. But it's
based
just-
on input from,
And let's say this is the first time you see it.
yes, today was the first time I saw this yellow budget, yes.
Well, I think administratively.
According to this, it says that the budget should prepare a budget with proposed expenditures and disbursements, which we have talked about earlier today is not correct, so I don't know how. We've already done, how are we gonna change it and present it to the public when it's not what we set the tax rate on? So it's,
I'm gonna vote on it Friday, and that way we'll be able to propose it to them.
that's out of order, we should have adopted it on August the 9th.
May I make a suggestion, just as a team member here? I would suggest that immediately today, you need to find your legal counsel and your accountant and get some clarification.
Yeah.
By noon, it's 11:30. This
Yeah,
is,
hopefully Christie can do that today.
okay,
I'm not gonna do anything.
well,
Okay,
why don't you take it on?
I mean, we've already voted.
Maybe the
so-
vice
Okay,
president
well,
will.
okay, let me just say, here's what
I don't know.
there's not anything that I can write at this point other than putting in data that we were hearing about today on population, basically, how much folks have, et cetera and so forth, growth. I have all that data and I had it before. So when we look to that, the questions and answers, like I usually, what I do, 20 questions written in a very forward way, questions that are not necessarily as straightforward here, that would give the same answers that these folks, that you all are wanting, and everybody else. I want all the information formatted, put on the website for posting, doing a flyer that could be distributed at public spaces, whether there's a farmer's market or, the DAV hall or something like that, and telling them to go to the website and look at the answers. We do social media, graphic designs, direct mail, budget permitting, we talked about that. And then I was looking at a PowerPoint presentation, should you all want to go or be invited to a Chamber of Commerce or, Board of Realtors meeting and want to make a presentation. I had thought that we would be further along than we are today, but I was geared up to have all this information to you by September 1st. But I can't do it early.
Ms. Pavlik,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
we're going to open the 2.2 again and rediscuss it and change our proposed budget.
What?
Yes.
It was
I wanna talk about this. I mean, after sitting here listening, doing the chair making a motion to reopen 2.2, at that time, interrupt you
I'm
for
sorry,
a
Ms.
second.
Pavlik.
No, I'm fine.
Sitting here listening to Ricky Reeves talk about Texas EMS and his equipment that's aging out, and his ambulances that's aging out, and the stretchers that's aging out, and his shortages and losing his staff on the deal, and then listening to Randall Brandt back there saying the same thing with his equipment on the thing. The budget is not sufficient because of the equipment here, the equipment that needs to be replaced. I'm convinced that we probably need more than the 2 cents to really cover if something is gonna happen sooner than later to your equipment and also to Randall Brandt's equipment down here, and for the staff that we've got. These staff, we're losing people all the time to other districts that can pay them more money. It's just a fact of life, and we're faced with that all the time. So I'd like to amend these operating expenses down here to say that it should be $2 million worth of operating expenses on this budget.
I mean,
Operating expenses for ambulance service.
Operating expenses.
And then we need to add some money for legal fees, which I'm gonna say is 20,000.
Yes.
That's a lot, yes. Okay.
So with
And
that,
we'll take off the lease of the hospital building and equipment, that as income, because that came in 1996, so that's no longer
that was
income.
prepaid, that was
Right.
prepaid.
It just made the legal, made it look nice for people who were being voted into spots.
The excess tax sales proceeds, is that a one-time deal, or is that every year? That $7,700?
That excess tax sale,
Yes.
it comes every year. It's
Yes,
back.
we're still getting tax money from 1990s,
Oh,
before the taxes stopped.
okay,
We've got some from the 1970s,
oh, okay.
as strange as that may seem.
It might be wise to reduce that a little bit though, because, it,
Okay, so where we have the operating expenses, we're adding on for equipment is what we really need, isn't it?
Ambulance services,
Yeah, ambulance service, $2 million.
Yeah.
so the
and
top,
legal fees 20,000,
Yeah, legal fees, 20,000.
whatever that adds up to be.
And legal expenses. What was the ambulance service here, one, is it one? So, what is it? Is that correct? So we're $1,020,000.
Yes, sir.
Your operating expenses. So it would be $2,224,000.
Something to consider possibly in indigent,
279.
is cancer patients that we're beginning to see more of,
Okay.
and their costs
Yeah, that's
associated with that.
exactly right.
Okay.
And have an increase in that so that you can cover if you have it, whether the sheriff brings it or she picks up an indigent care, that's gonna be very expensive.
And what I was just explaining to him is that civilians, they have caps, $30,000 caps. Inmates, we have to pay everything, so if the sheriff gets inmates that come in there, like we've seen with HIV or cancer, we're gonna have to pay for them, and those are unpredictable, you don't know how many or, you know,
So
when.
there should be a
Depends on how long
contingency
they'll
for
be
that,
there.
because we've already seen it.
yeah, so the top line is,
So it's $2,224,279 is the total operating expenses.
Judge, I think you forgot the indigent care line.
Well,
We moved that down, that's $636,000.
I think you need to be at about 2.8, because that's your tax rate.
we're talking about operating expenses. We had it, we put it under ambulance. I'm saying we had $1 million. It needs to be $2 million.
Yes, I agree, but earlier in the meeting, we moved the line item for indigent care from expenses to, from revenue to expenses.
right, that.
It really is an expense.
That 636 needs to be an expense.
You know what he said?
Yeah, the six.
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
The indigent doesn't change.
The 636,
Yeah.
Not an operating revenue.
This needs to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's indigent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It needs to drop in here.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, the tax.
Brings us to 200.
Yeah, it's cost, it's an expense,
Yes, sir.
it's not a revenue.
So it's a $2.8 million.
Yeah.
2.8.
So it's 636 and.
yeah.
Let me add that in this.
They're good with numbers, they can do that. Look at the end of mine.
And then
So
you're
it's
not-
actually $2,861,332.
And had we made that first move to 636 before the recommended increase, would have been at 1.9.
That's right, it would have been at 1.9, so. That's
We
good.
didn't know.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion to,
Well, we have to make,
wait.
back out of the public hearing. Get back into, we gotta close out.
We're not in public
move that the budget for the year ended September 30th, or the proposed budget, number 2, be $2,861,332. And like Mr. Monty has just, Monty Lewis has said up there, the indigent care cost needs to be an expense rather than a revenue. It's what we have to pay out. So that goes down, and with the 636 added to the other 9,000,009, we got a total of $2,861,332. That's more realistic. That's what we're gonna have to really make sure that both ambulance services, both Texas CMS and Randall Branch.
And to make sure the county residents are taken care of.
That's right, we got to have a good ambulance service here, whether you're a billionaire or an indigent. You need a good ambulance service, and that's what it's gonna take. And I got the 2 guys that know more about it than anybody else in this room, and that's Ricky Reeves and Randall Brandt shaking their heads in agreement. So that's my motion. Do I hear a second? Second by Jack Wilson.
Okay.
Okay, bring.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Reiterate
Did we get,
Andrew's up to speed.
did we get the 2.8 million on the budget?
Do I have to say where he went?
Yeah.
28632.
Here, Brandon.
Why?
Okay.
I'm sorry, number 1, number 2, or 3?
We move back into that budget session. Okay. This comes down. Okay. Okay, we'll change that to 2 million because of the.
Okay. We're at 2.8?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We have a budget that reflects the
Budget that reflects the
tax
tax
rate.
rate
Okay.
that's being requested.
Okay.
You have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion about going to the bathroom or anything like that? Commissioner Andrews?
Nah, I'm good.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. It passes, thank you, 8-0. All right. Okay, back to 2.6.
Well, maybe it's getting better. Okay.
Oh, no, anybody else need to go to the bathroom?
You need to put breath.
You do.
No.
Number 1.
No, before you get to her, you need to go back and 2.4, reopen that, and set your rate.
We already have.
The rate was set at
Oh, set 2.8, no.
There you go, that's done.
approximately 2.8.
Okay, got it.
With 2 cents.
Yeah, we did it 2 cents.
2 cents.
We also passed 2.5, right? To have the election. And now, you're 2.6.
Okay, well, let me just say that, again, you have a list of materials. I think that what I really need is for you all to, point me in the right direction on verifying the information that I have. I mean, I don't prefer the interest and respect for you all and your time, and also knowing it's imperative, because to get this information out, that, I be able to, I'll go back and write what I heard, but then I think maybe it's, the folks here, our EMS specialists can take a look at it, some of the funding things. I would like to be able to work with a couple of you all offline, send you some drafts, if you will, get input. I know that we'll, from a design standpoint, we will, from, what you expressed last week about showing the cost increase, whatever it was, we won't do it as dramatically, we'll do it more straightforward.
You mean with
So,
the hamburgers?
yeah, hamburger, malts,
Yeah.
whatever. So, is that okay? I mean, who can I call? Who can we talk to? How do you all wanna do it?
You can talk to any member of this board you want to.
Yeah.
And as long as we're not more than 3 of us together at a
Sure,
time.
sure, I respect that. Now, do you think you all will need to come back and approve virtually everything, every paragraph, every period? Or is conceptually, okay with one or two of you signing off on certain things? Because I've outlined several items.
As long as it's factual and you can prove it up. You just said up here, I'm just putting out the facts. You're like Jack Webb.
But I've
bragging.
listened to
I'm
y'all
just
for
putting out
a
the
long
facts.
time, and
So,
we all
yeah.
say a little differently, so.
It's just the facts, man.
Okay.
I know the facts are not gonna change here, so.
Okay, one question, one comment
It's simple.
on your handout here where you're talking about direct mail, rather than direct mail, because that is, you know, far more expensive,
$15,000.
possibly, you know, text blast.
We can do that. We can
Okay,
work it
so
right.
text blast, you get, you know, you can put out, you know, 2 or 3 times what a mailer is gonna cost.
I'm very familiar with that.
Okay, so-
We're almost.
Can you do that? We don't have to hire somebody else
Well,
to do it?
okay, I'm a small little business, there's 5 of us, but I subcontract, and I manage all those pieces.
Right.
Before this general election, before 2024, Linda was doing heavy political. I'm out. I'm not doing any side, any project, except positive information about for the voters that you will.
Yeah, we could do the road signs too.
I'm just asking what anybody thinks about the road signs. I mean,
It's in strategic locations.
I will make this comment from what I have seen, is that I agree with the direct mail aspect, but I have seen more people go to the voting booth with information in their hand
Right.
before they walk into the voting booth, and they may trash it, but they take one last look at that card, and it's usually pretty effective, and if that card says it, that's.
And it's legal to carry it in.
And it doesn't have to be pretty or colorful, it just has to be simple, and this is who it's for and why.
I don't want it political, I just want it factual.
Yeah.
It's just-
This is not Republican, this is not Democrat, this is Hood County, God help us all.
This is for every person in Hood County.
What would work in Pecan Valley? What would, what for your, I'm sorry.
Actually, Dr. Bishop was there too.
As far as, you know, you live there, what kind of information do you get?
We have, Collins Magazine, which used to not post things or take advertisement for things like this, but they do now, so I don't know how much it costs to, do you? Brandon,
Yes, ma'am.
do you know how much it costs for an ad in the Collins?
I know Flyer and EMS, we have a couple of columns in there, but I don't know an ad.
Well, that's probably the best, don't you agree, Lonnie, that's the best
What's that,
communications,
magazine?
Collins
your
Magazine?
magazine.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we
absolutely,
have
columns,
also.
and there's a little local magazine there that's.
Pecan Neighbors?
Yeah.
Those two
that-
magazines will get you more than direct mail.
And I think that, working with somebody like Jay Arrington within, Con, who does, a lot of the e-blast.
Why do I know that name? Is he retired from media?
No.
It's Jay Arrington, Arrington, and he is their, communication specialist.
Okay.
Now, they do not, and I will tell you, Con, under their bylaws, do not allow, political statements and things. I think that's correct.
But informational.
Where
But-
in.
That isn't true. That isn't true. They allowed it, well, last time.
Yeah, when it changed from being produced within Pecan to being produced by an outside
Okay.
service, they.
Because I know the
disregarded-
bylaws were very specific to that.
Steve Smith had a giant ad for Hood County, Precinct 2 Constable. And
Oh, yeah. So they changed their bylaws, or some, I think it's because who's producing the magazine now, that they, allow political ads now. They used to not, but they do now.
They'll price it out very quickly. Somebody needs to buy them.
Yeah.
Also, when I published a newspaper,
Yeah.
I took that.
And the
back to-
information gets put in the Hood County News also.
Well, information and such, for sure, but then.
That's what I'm gonna do.
That's what I'm going.
So it's about like the same magazine that they have, the com, we have one called Fairway,
Oh, yeah.
same thing, so.
Maybe produced by the same people.
It is, it's kind of is produced both of those. Darren Clark is contact on that. Saturday, both of those magazines.
What we can do talking about outdoor signage and things like that. And, you know, look at the preliminary estimate you got on mail, but we can look at that and fine tune it, see what we can find.
Can you actually do that? You're calling a bond, can you actually participate in a PR campaign about it?
We would call it an informational campaign. If you look at what your municipalities do.
Okay.
Okay, now, what didn't happen is the young attorney was here last time, because he was quoting something about signage.
Right.
And I asked him to send that to me, and then he didn't have a card that day, so I need to read that, because.
I know the school could do some of that.
It's a very delicate balance in how you do it, but I'll also suggest to you that the signage becomes more expensive, in my opinion, when we go to balance it out.
Right.
So I want to help you on staff.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so, y'all are putting me on speed dial. No, it's, I'm gonna laugh and say, this is almost like a political campaign. You get a group together and everybody disagrees, and they agree to disagree, and then they, oh, well, let's do it. Okay, so, I'm enthusiastic. We're going to make certain that it is factual, informative. There won't be any adjectives other than maybe saying the population has grown significantly. There's a good adjective, but it won't be vote for, et cetera, and so forth. And so, and maybe the best way to move this along the quickest is to look to do the question and answers, and then materials for the website. And then I guess if you can work with me or my staff to find out who we work with to get our materials up on the website. I think that becomes very important. I don't know. I said, could you find whoever I need?
I will, that I will do. But I will help you, whatever you need.
Okay, and so do you all like the idea of flyers or something like that? What we've been doing a lot of in other cities right now is, you know, just 8 by 10 at libraries or community events, especially, you know, where you're gonna find seniors. Now, I don't know about folks using QR codes to take them to the website when you pass out those flyers. I'm sure, you know, something like that.
Developer websites?
No, I could, but we don't have the money. I was gonna use the county's website.
No, you just need a one-page Q&A, and you need the easiest way for them to contact in terms of what they're gonna see, in relationship, and closer to the election is when it's gonna be most important. Anything that comes well before that is, people are not gonna make their voting decisions until probably 2 to 3 days of the time that they walk into the booth. And,
What kind of early voting do you have to do?
well,
Excuse me, mail ballots.
I don't know.
I'll ask the county, but mail ballots, we need to be ready sooner than later, because you do have a smaller population that's still doing that.
But remember, we have this presidential election, so it's gonna be heavy.
Well, that's a good point.
It'll be very heavy, and you're gonna have to make sure that their mind sees the other little things, not the two candidates they're going to battle in. That's what's gonna be on their mind, so the bond for the jail and this are gonna be, to them, very insignificant.
I do have a question, because how is this going to be presented? Because the minute they see Indigent Care, I don't want it, unless it's indigent people calling to apply for it, I don't want to get over in there with people calling with questions, unless I have someone to refer them to. Because I just have a feeling the minute you said this is for Indigent Care, they don't call that number for Indigent Care, it'll never end.
No, and I appreciate that, and, you know, it's a lot of practicality, it's what you were saying today, and your colleagues, to a lesser degree, almost becomes the lead for something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And so.
But can you use something other than indigent? Can you? the mission of the hospital district. And somewhere along the way, there is a mission that says what you do, if they wanna look at that mission, but.
Well, the reason that you have a hospital district, the state created that to make sure for indigent healthcare. I mean, that
No,
word
it is.
that word is there, and I hear what you're saying now. It may be the placement in what paragraph or
Right,
what sentence, but I feel like in that, full disclosure, why in the world do y'all exist?
And
What do you
we
exist?
have to make sure that it's very early on that that the hospital is not getting anything from this. Because they will be very confused thinking the hospital's getting that, and there's already enough negative numbers sent out, but it's gotta be somewhere stating this does not go to the hospital.
And if the hospital district doesn't get the tax money, and we run out of money, then everything that we pay for goes to the commissioner's court. And the county's gonna have to pay for it anyway, one way or the other.
I have been thinking that there is a positive to this. Why do we have a separate hospital board? It's because you're smaller, you're programmed with this particular mission, et cetera, et cetera.
They set it up that way in 1996.
You just said hospital board, don't, I'm sorry.
Hospital district.
I appreciate that. I'm a former chair of JPS hospital board. It'll take me a while to get over it, but when I write it, I'll write it correctly.
I mean, it's already hit some of the breaking news comments. Hospital is getting this tax, and there's
That's a
gotta
good
be a
point.
very, like independent campaign against, no, it's not, it's going to the hospital district, I don't know how.
This is the hospital
Well-
district, not the hospital.
Yeah.
And I think that, looking back in the past, I think a significant portion of the reason that the hospital district was created and separated was with the lease that put the lease money over there in a separate account, in a separate situation to pay for the indigent care. So I think that was the reason for the separation of the hospital district in the beginning. And I think it's still a very valid point. If again, the lease gets re-upped, the big balloon payment or whatever, it keeps it over in a separate jurisdiction instead of that being, at large with the county budget. So.
Some of these things to me sound like what I really want to fine tune.
I think that's an important point to point out that the hospital district owns the hospital and we lease it to the hospital operator. And that's CHS. So, I think that that's an important thing, and then of course the separation of it.
Yeah, and that no funds that the hospital district collects goes to the hospital operator.
Yeah,
Right.
emphasizing that. Okay.
And then the hospital, our contract with the hospital ends in 2026, and then the next 10 years, they have the option of having 10 years lease for $1,000 total.
That's what I thought.
They go to $8 a month, that ain't gonna get us real far, but,
And then they have options
and I
to
think
pay
that it's
$1 million.
important. I think that it's also important to include the fact that the hospital takes care of a significant portion of the indigent burden by providing those services in
Yes,
ER. I
they
think
do.
I think that that's very critical to point out, that the hospital has partnered with us in this, and they are dealing with a significant portion of the cost of the
Now,
indigent
After the legal,
Do they
Thing.
get,
Yeah.
well, but they get reimbursed?
No.
no.
See, that's not very
Yeah, they
clear.
get that cost.
That he totally eats the cost.
That's a good
In the hospital.
education, but
But they didn't absorb that cost for years until this judge brought it up in a legal battle.
It's only a portion, and this is what I explained the last meeting, is what happens is, it's like we'll start with the civilians. Okay, they will cover, that's when he goes to the hospital. Depending on whether they have co-pays, because we do have some patients that, are obligated to pay co-pays depending on their income. If they go in there, the maximum they're paid when they walk into that ER, this is get everything done in the hospital, not physician services, they're gonna pay $50 copay. And the hospital's gonna eat the cost of all their other services that aren't, I guess, third provider out. So if you have, you know, a hospitalist that comes in, or you have a physician, then those are services that we start paying for, but they still eat a big chunk.
Okay, but, so this physician's group out here, that, where you have your clinics around, and they're.
Now, the clinics are different.
And they.
We do pay out of,
Okay.
you know, our money.
What the hospital stuff today, and maybe as our things are evolving, it's not really clearly written at this point.
No, and I think that it's important to kind of clarify that a little bit. So, for example, if somebody goes into the ER with a broken arm, and they're on our indigent list, their emergency services are provided for, but say an x-ray, the radiologist will bill separately from that. That's not included in it, but the hospital portion. Right.
So what, I'm kind of picturing a few different scenarios that you might build. Patient A does this is these are the things that happen to them, here's how their charges are broken down. Patient B, different scenario, this is the things that happen to them, here's how their charges are broken down. Just to go, you know, it's a inmate in the jail, it's a civilian copay, it's a civilian that doesn't have insurance at all. They had prescriptions, they had an x-ray outside the hospital. I mean, just maybe 4 or 5 different scenarios that Krista could give you that would break down, this is the part the hospital is, I wouldn't say yet, but covering. This is the part that's already covered by the hospital based on the contract.
That's helpful.
This,
yes.
Based on the contract, this is the part that comes out of the patient's pocket, if there is any.
Sure.
This is the part that comes out of the hospital district funds. Just because there's so many different scenarios, 4 or 5 might help.
With respect to Kurt, if you ask Kurt whether he would want those scenarios, if I was sitting in Kurt's shoes, I would say no. Because it confuses the issue. And this comes from marketing stuff, and this goes back. This is personal, not hospitals. Just, I think Judge said it, just present the facts of what we're trying to do. And I think Kurt would be a good source for you to ask the question. I'm not disputing that Nanette's not onto a good idea. I'm just saying that I think from what I'm hearing, it would confuse the audience and it would cast a cloud as to which direction they should vote, and that would concern me.
I think the least that you could have the hospital in here, the better off.
Well, and that's kind of where I'm at, and I think that's where Kurt would be at this juncture. He's fighting, his situation is one that's to build the credibility of the hospital, which the work they have done, to Nanette and Kevin's point, they've done a tremendous job. There's no question. But I'm more concerned that there's 20 of us in this room that knows what that means. There's 60,000 out there that don't understand, and that's what concerns me.
Okay, well, obviously, I'm gonna be wordsmithing and getting input and all, yeah. It kind of, when you start describing the hospital, it's a for-profit organization.
It is, and we're talking about the hospital district and the taxing for it, and we need to take the hospital out of the equation.
Well, I think that we need to show that the hospital is partnering with us in helping to offset some of these indigent.
I don't think it's part of the vote you need to. You have a line item for indigent care that's being taken care of. How those policies are dictated for reimbursement is totally different. You're talking about getting a PR out there to get a voter to say, yes, I am for this, or yes, I'm against this. If you put the hospital in there in the equation, it's gonna be no.
We're trying to set the facts out there. We're not trying to get the voters to do anything. We're trying to give them the facts.
I know that, but I'm telling you, you mentioned the hospital as part of this tax. They think it's going to the hospital. Cause they're not educated enough, and I don't know that you can put enough education in the facts to be able to clear that up.
Let us work on the words and communicate with y'all as a team. See where we are. I appreciate all the conversations that occurred. I understand these various perspectives.
People are already asking, what does indigent care mean? And
I think you need to have a definition.
And if we don't explain what indigent care is, we're not giving the facts. And who's paying for indigent care?
I already have, some of the things that I've drafted up early on, yeah, I'll be massaging, so you're not just gonna get one finished deliverable, you're gonna get, okay, here's a snapshot, here's how I'm.
But she is right, when you do put that out, now it opens her door for people that never realized that, and think they may, her burden is gonna increase drastically.
And mine just, I've lived in like two different worlds. I've been down at the bottom where they doing well, not doing well. And unfortunately, when people hear that word, if they, you know, they think it's people who are lazy, they don't work, they do drugs. You know, I mean, they don't understand what lives these people really live. And so I wanted to, you know, I don't even know how to put that out there, because I just always had to explain to it, it's not, you can't literally judge a book by its cover, you know, but that doesn't mean we don't have individuals that come in here and do stuff like that, but for 90% of them, they're sick, they can't work, they, you know, they just need some assistance. Or they've gotten sick, and I just had a new one come on here, who wound up in the hospital, he lost his job, and now he's got all these health issues, and he lost his health insurance on top of that.
Could be your great aunt whose husband, you know, is still suffering from PTSD from the, you know, Vietnam War, and they have nothing, and there's all sorts of scenarios. So let me, I know, I understand what you're saying.
But even if we did, you know, where it said indigent health care, that it's not just like, oh, I don't know, I've never really cared for the term indigent, but that's what, the way it's said.
If you were a taxpayer, and you're asking, well, you know, why is there a hospital district? Why, you know, when we've been mandated by law, what is your mission? What is, I haven't seen anything in the hospital other than what was mandated by the state law. Do you all have a mission per se? From, no, probably not, but you see what I'm saying? I think that there will be a way to do it so that it's clear, but by weaving in some details about, where the county is, population, you know, except breakout, everything about financials.
You get assumptions, and we get assumptions that you're putting illegals on your program, that's not true, we don't do that. We get assumptions that money's going to the hospital, no, that's not the case.
Yeah, okay, that's the biggest thing.
That's
Right there,
the biggest issue.
is that the hospital itself, Lake Granbury Medical Center, does not get 1 penny of the tax revenue from this tax. They got to understand that. I mean, Kirk Junkins even wrote something to that effect about saving that and put it out in the paper that it's not, even though it's a misnomer, it says hospital tax is for indigent care and for the ambulance services.
I think we'll start saying ambulance services and indigent.
That's probably the best way.
If you worded indigent health care.
Yeah.
That's
No, we say indigent.
I've got another meeting, excuse me.
You're okay.
Thanks for your tenacity, Judge. Hanging out.
I believe you, I'm mad, I just believe you.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions or things to say?